Hey again. If you watched my previous video about the Olympus 50 to 200mm Four-Thirds lens, you might remember me talking about how that was my go-to lens for several years and how I took more photos with it than any other lens. All of that was true, especially at the time, since back then I was at the beginning of the career path and I didn't have the income to sally forth and buy all of those super high-grade lenses when they were first released. I waited around for many moons, long after the system was mercilessly terminated by the masters of the universe where Olympus is concerned, before I started to steadily acquire all of that stellar top tier glass from the used market, mainly eBay. Now, more than 15 years after the Olympus Four-Thirds line of cameras and lenses has been shuttered, my favorite Four-Thirds lens is no longer the 50 to 200mm. And as much as I love the little hunk of glass, it's not the 11 to 22 millimeter either, but it's fairly close. The honor now belongs to the Olympus 14 to 35 millimeter F2.0, and I have one right here. I have it attached to my E300. As you can see, and I'll take this lens hood off, that's a chunky little beast right there. And it's kind of big for this camera, but it's still workable though. And we'll talk a little bit more about the details of it, but that's just so you have an idea what it looks like and so forth. Now, when I talk about the word favorite, I think I need to qualify that for you. The image quality that I get from lenses like the I don't know, the 35 to 100 f2 and the 150 millimeter lens is phenomenal. Maybe even a hair better than the 14 to 35 f2. The same goes for the 7 to 14 millimeter f4 as well. But because of certain factors with each lens, I just don't carry them as often. Mostly it has to do with weight and size, but the subject matter also that I shoot also on a more regular basis tends to favor the 14 to 35 f2. So when I talk about my favorite lens, it's not strictly an image quality issue. The declaration is basically weighted by which lens I just end up using more often now for different reasons. Most of the pictures I take on an everyday basis are usually about town, street photography, environmental portraiture, landscapes, and cityscapes, and I find the 14 to 35 millimeter lets me get the vast majority of shots that I do on a regular basis with my 4/3 gear. Now, if I'm traveling and doing something more specific like wildlife photography, sporting events, or something very niche or specific, then yeah, I'll make sure to have the lens that I need to get the job done. But for my everyday Four-Thirds photography life, the 14 to 35 millimeter is king right now. Now, the nice thing about the 14 to 35 is that I can use it on all of my Four-Thirds bodies and also on my micro Four-Thirds camera as well. Now, that's done with adapters that were made by Olympus, Panasonic, and a few third-party manufacturers, but the only ones I have are from Olympus. I do have a Panasonic one, but most of them I have are from Olympus. Right now, as I said, I've got the 14 to 35 on one of my E300s, and you can see what it's like on there. And I can swap it out to my EM1 Mark II here, and I'm going to show you how that I do that. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the lens, it's a 50 millimeter f1.2, off of the EM1 Mark II, okay? Then I'm going to take the lens off of my E300, the 14 to 35 here. We'll set those down. Now, I'm going to bring out this adapter. This adapter is the MMF3. That's the one I had the most of. They had a couple other versions. I'm not sure what the differences were. This is always the one that I used. But all you do is you put the adapter onto your micro Four-Thirds body, just like that. As you can see, it fits right on there. Then, now bear with me because this light casts a lot of shadows and it's hard for me to see what's going on. Oh, there it is. That was easy. And then I've got the 14 to 35 on my EM1 Mark II, just so you can see what it looks like on there. And that's handy because sometimes, 10, 12 megapixels doesn't get it done, and I need those little bit extra resolution. So being able to take that lens and throw it on here is really handy and helps quite a bit on occasion. Now, before I get going, I'm gonna reverse the process here. I'm gonna take 14-35 off, put it back on the E300. I can't stand having camera bodies just open, so dust can get in there. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of this. Like right here. How is oh, right there. And I'm going to put this 50 to 1.2 back on the EM1 Mark II, just like that. It freaks me out. The people that just, I see people throwing lenses into their backpacks, without a dust cover or with lens caps or anything on it. And it just freaks me out. And seeing a body laying around with an open face and nothing covering it up and getting dust on the sensor it really messes with me. So now, before I did this video, I did a search on YouTube and I was just absolutely shocked. I mean, really, I was surprised that there are basically no videos dedicated to this 14 to 35. There's an unboxing video from 14 years ago that's like a minute long or something, and then there's some kind of announcement video from 16 years ago, and there's a 2-minute foreign video, and I don't even know what that guy was talking about, but that's about it. I know Allie talks about this lens a little bit in her E1 video. Her channel is 1 month, 2 cameras, but that is about it. I can't believe there's not more information on YouTube about this incredible lens. Even if it was released the same year that YouTube started and became a thing, you would think that other stuff would have been posted over the years. The Olympus 14 to 35mm F2 was released in February 2005 at the same time as the 35-100 F2 and the 90 to 250 F2.8. And there's a little bit of a story about that release that ties in directly with me. If you dig back through the forum posts on dpreview.com, you'll find that I was the first person on the internet to release the information about the pending release of these 3 lenses. Now, the possibility of constant f2 zooms was incredibly exciting for Four-Thirds users at the time, but they were also apprehensive, rightly so, about what the pricing would be. And we'll get to that in just a minute. But I had gone down to my local camera store in Charlotte, North Carolina, and the Olympus rep had been there earlier that morning, and he was letting all the employees know what was coming down the pike from Olympus that year. Well, one of those employees told me everything that the rep said, and needless to say, I had to share it with everybody on the internet. Now, nobody told me it was a secret, but it ruffled some feathers with Olympus because they tracked me down via the camera store employees and wanted me to remove the post. Well, you know how the internet is. I told them it was too late for all of that. Now, not only does this story emphasize how much of an Olympus fan I am, it also highlights how old I'm getting to be as well, so try not to hold it against me too much. Anyway, the 14 to 35 f2 was, at the time, an epic lens. Though companies are doing f2 zooms now, Olympus was the only one doing it back then. The 14 to 35 is a chunky piece of glass with 18 elements in 17 groups, has one ED element and one aspherical ED element for that extra bump in image quality. The lens features 9 aperture blades, it zooms internally, and it sports all the same weather sealing that you would expect from Olympus's top cameras and lenses from the time. Oh, and at its release in 2005, it had an eye-watering price of around $2,300. I don't even want to try to calculate what that is in today's money, but it was an expensive lens. The 14 to 35 has a 77mm filter thread, so it's not the smallest filter size out there, but it's not a behemoth either like the Canon 28 to 70 f2. This lens weighs 2.02 pounds. It's 4.84 inches long, and it has a diameter of 3.39 inches. Now, one of the key differences between the 14-35 and the other 2 lenses that were released at the same time is that this lens had the SWD autofocus system. And if you remember from my 50 to 200 millimeter lens video, that was an SWD version as well. That stands for the silent wave drive system. And this silent wave drive system was much faster and it was much quieter than Olympus's older AF system. That's also one of the reasons why I don't use the 35 to 100 f2 that much, because it makes quite a bit of racket. I only break it out when I have to have that extra reach and I want the absolute best in image quality. Now, I'll be honest and say here that I understand what my limitations are as a photographer, and I'm always working to get better. But my best skill is writing. I've written gun reviews for the last 15 years and for a variety of magazines and websites, and I've also written reviews about knives and other outdoors gear. I'm a gear guy, and I love cameras and lenses for their own sake as much as I love photography. Obsessed with tech, craftsmanship, and the different types of execution of a tool that can be accomplished by different manufacturers. You know, with that in mind, look at it this way: a camera is a camera, right? But look at the stunning differences in features and unique image styles that are available from companies like Fuji and Nikon and Canon, and now it's OEM system instead of Olympus, Panasonic and Sigma and others. They're all essentially making the same products, but the end result is wildly different in some cases than what their competitors are making. I say all of this because I love the gear, the tech, and I have tons of cameras and lenses laying around. So many that I can't take nearly as many images with each camera and lens as I would like to take. There's just not enough time, and believe you me, there's always another piece of gear that I want to try. I mention all of that while Well, I mention all that because while I have some image samples to share with you, I don't have an exhaustive number of images to share. First, I'm always shooting with different pieces of gear from Nikon or Canon or Olympus or Sony. Now it's getting into Sony. And also, what I'm showing you are mostly what I consider my better images, though I'm throwing a few not so great photos in there simply so you can see the color rendering and you can see have the tonality of a particular image, just so you can see an example of what this lens can do. But they're not all bangers. Back in the days of film photography, pro photographers were happy if they got one or two keeper images off of a roll of 35mm film. Suffice to say, I don't want to show you garbage photos during this video. You could possibly end up blaming the lens when it was probably me that was the problem. But anyway, here are some images taken with the 14 to 35mm f2. Have a look at them and see what you think. Well, I hope you got a little insight into the 14 to 35 from those images. I'd be interested to hear anyone's thoughts about the 1435 in the comments, especially from those folks that have used it before and like to share their experience with the rest of us. Maybe between this video and some user comments, we might convince some brave souls to jump in and buy a used 14 to 35 millimeter for their own 4/3 camera. But I'll tell you, the 1435 still isn't what you would consider cheap. Even though the system was discontinued more than 15 years ago, a used 14 to 35 still sells for between $800 to $1,200 depending on its condition. So good luck with that. Now, as a side note, I mentioned in my previous video that I want to make this YouTube thing work, and I'm always trying to learn more about the process. I was watching a video the other day, it was about this YouTube guru about how to grow a channel. And his advice was to search for different topics that might interest you. Find a really popular video, he said, where the views of the video is 5 times the number of subscribers for the person that made the video. And then just make the same video with your own image and voice and repackage it. He talked about how he did that for his brother's first video and got him almost 800,000 views right out of the gate. I guess it sounds good on the surface, but for some reason, it kind of disgusted me. Not only was he basically talking about ripping off someone else's idea for the sake of more views and subscribers, but to me, he was guiding people down the path of, I'll call it insincerity. Sure, I guess you could use that idea if your sole purpose was to only get views, only get subscribers, so you could only make more money. Yeah, I want my channel to grow, and I would love to make a little money with it someday down the road, probably way down the road. But if I did something like he was talking about, I'd feel like a fake or a charlatan. I want to come up with ideas and topics that truly interest both me and my subscribers, and I want them to be original ideas, or at least authentic to who I am. As much as I would like to monetize the channel at some point, I want it to feel real and like I earned it, not because I took some formulaic shortcut to dupe the viewers into believing that I was someone or something that I'm not. That's why I also refuse to do some of these faceless AI videos. Lots of people are doing that, but what real value are they bringing to their audience, to you? Even though I don't have the energy and charisma of a young, cool, and hip influencer talking about bangers, I still want to be authentic and still actually earn my subscribers and views. That said, I'd like to hear your thoughts on things that interest you, whether it's particular topics or specific kinds of gear. I like a lot of things. I like EDC gear, prepper gear, knives, backpacks, bags, and there's a whole range of discussion topics that interest me, from cosmology to the impact of AI or quantum computing. I even like more introspective stuff that deal with the human spirit and struggle, particularly where AI is interfacing with a lot of our things that we considered creative and things that stemmed from, the conveyance of human expression, like art and music. It's all changing now. But some of those kinds of videos aren't necessarily as you can't really monetize those as well. But I'll be happy to talk about anything. You know, I'm looking to get some ideas from you all. I mean, I'll be steering the ship most of the time, but it might be helpful to get a little navigation now and then from you all. So I appreciate you all watching again. Sound off below if you know anything about 4/3 gear, or if you've used the 14 to 35 before. Heck, you can sound off in the comments with pretty much anything you like, that especially to discuss. That's why the comments are there. And if you enjoyed the information presented about the 14 to 35, maybe you like the images, maybe you like the information, maybe you'll help me out by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Just hit those buttons right below there, right there, right there. I appreciate it. Thanks, take care, and I'll talk to you soon.